So it technically didn't lose anything. It just gave out money to other funds such as your construction or your district or your debt service, things like that. So overall, very healthy, very positive look on that, and I would be, as a board member, you should be proud that, you know, you've been fiscally responsible to help keep that number stable and strong. Page 16, this is food service. Food service is always, food service is never gonna make money anymore, it just doesn't. But you all only dipped into, and actually after your grants and everything came in, you actually did have money, you transferred money out of food service. So although we dipped into the fund balance a little bit, it was really because we transferred money out of food service. So, you know, it's hard to.
Well, I can help you on that one. Increased cost versus what we had budgeted.
Right.
Anybody who goes in Kroger understands over the last 12 months, costs increase in a way that
No one budgeted for those type of increases.
Yeah.
So, but still, it stayed pretty healthy. I mean, given what you had to deal with and work with. So, moving on, the notes, which are disclosure notes, and the disclosure notes in an audit just tell about the numbers. So we're not going to go over those other than a couple pages. Page 24. This is just a note to the board members. Basically, at the bottom of page 24, I give you some definitions in here. I'm required to put these in an audit. All auditors are. And if you see at the bottom, it says non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned. I always charge the board members of any entity to understand those, read those, because when you use those words in a board meeting, I'm reading those board minutes and I'm looking for those words, and those mean something to me. The difference between committing money and restricting money makes a difference in your audit. So just read over those and make sure you understand when you use those words what they mean to your auditor, because we do look at those and we basically write the audit based on how you've worded some of these actions that you've taken. We'll jump to page 47. Just point out here that the district did expend some COVID money during the year, and of course that's all dry and all. But you know, we did have a little bit, and that's, you know, basically given out to all the districts. We'll jump to page 71. Let's get a little farther in there. So this would be page 71. So we've talked about the district. We're going to jump to the school level activity funds. Overall, this is the gate admission tickets, and this is the fundraisers and the car washes and all that stuff that we do to keep our sports and our academic or our other clubs surviving, basically. Beechwood took in $546,000 at the high school level and $78,000 at the elementary level, or below high school level. And so basically you expended all of that. And if anybody's familiar with the Red Book is what controls how you collect and what you do with this money. And one of the things you're supposed to do is you're supposed to spend it. If you collect it, you're supposed to spend it back on the children. So as you can see, we always look at that to make sure you're following those Red Book guidelines. You did do that, so that was good. We also dig into all of your boxes of receipts and everything. Those are not really electronic yet, but that's because it's a lot of small numbers that's coming in. And we look at those very closely because those are usually cash that's coming in from parents and gates when you're checking into ball games and all that. And so we look at, are you following all the rules of the Red Book? Because KDE is very, very particular about that, because this money is supposed to be used, collected, safeguarded, and used back for the kids in a certain way. So we'll get to it, but Beechwood did a good job of making sure that they followed those rules. Page 73. There have been years where you did not have a single audit. Single audit means that you expended over $750,000 of federal money. Now that money could pass through the state and still be federal money. But once you expend $750,000 in 1 year period of government federal money, then you are required to have what's called a single audit. That's a little bit different than your financial audit, but they do combine. It's a compliance audit. We basically look at all of the grants, and this page lists those grants. And we look at those grants. We're charged with reading all of the requirements of those grants and then digging through your records. We're not looking at dollars specifically during that part of the audit. We're looking at, did you follow the rules of the grant? Did you spend the money in the places and in the procedures that you were supposed to. You did not have any findings in that area whatsoever, which is wonderful. And that's difficult because when you're dealing with governmental money, they get very picky. So the single audit is a very, very serious part of our audit, and we have already submitted to the Federal Clearinghouse that we did not have any findings. So that's already been submitted. Page 82 is where
So
you're...
one note on that.
Go ahead.
And that is specifically because of the around 800,000 of ESSER money that we got over the last 2 cycles. I mean, so we never get enough
Yes.
federal money to have to do the single source audit.
Yeah, and it's happened the last couple of years because of all of the COVID money, the ESSER
Right,
money came
right,
out and all of
right.
that. So it's not typical, and I will say this, in districts that it's not typical, you're not used to the single audit. And so we've done this for over 20 years. We audit, 12, 13, 14 school districts a year. And we have findings at times. And at times it's just because they're not used to the single audit and what we're looking for. So
Absolutely.
we were very pleased to see that we didn't have any write-ups that you had to address in that area because those are directly reported by us to the federal government. So that was good that you followed all of those grant money rules to the letter. And I appreciate that. I'm sure your district appreciates that. So page 82 82, that's where I would report if you did have any. And so thankfully that page is pretty blank. We'll jump to page 87, which is the last page. Now at the district level, I did mention the Red Book and how we dig into the Red Book and we look for all kinds of things. The Red Book's very, very picky about how you spend that money that's coming in, the ball game money and all that. Overall, and we will list anything we see. Overall, I don't think there was anything that concerned me. There were a couple times that you had some things that were delivered and someone wasn't on campus to sign, and you all have taken steps to make sure that's taken care of. And then, of course, sometimes your vendors are not giving POs, and so you're going to create that procedure to fix that. So these were very minute. I wouldn't consider these issues at all, but we do list them because we feel obligated to be a reporter of the facts. So overall, I will say that the audit is clean, the records are clean, your staff is very knowledgeable. Christy's been wonderful to work with. Didn't know her until we met during the audit procedures, and she's been very enlightening because she takes her job very serious, and I appreciate that. And the staff that surrounds her, her financial staff that surrounds her, they're all very, very easy to work with, and records are in great order. I like that you're moving so electronic. That's wonderful. We've got a lot of Eastern Kentucky districts that we're trying to pull to that level, and but we're all trying to get there, and it's nice to see that you guys are a good example of how to get this stuff electronic and get through this audit a little more efficient, and I appreciate that. Any questions?
No, ma'am.
All right, you should ask one. All right, I want one question. Did you see any cases or any signs of any fraud in any of your areas?
No, and I will tell you that we take that very serious. We do fraud interrogations we pick random people from a janitor all the way up to the superintendent, and we do take that very serious. We look we send all of you all, you have to sign off on any kind of related party events or anything like that, and then we of course look for various related parties. I didn't see anything that would indicate there was any kind of fraud or any kind of impropriety going on, whether on purpose or by mistake. It seems like you follow your internal controls that you have set in place so that the numbers and the records are maintained with integrity. And I do appreciate that.
Thank you very much. I don't disagree. I see no signs of fraud either. I'm also very pleased to hear you say as well that for an independent we have a very healthy budget, and not part of your presentation, but just a reminder, with assessments increasing 31% next year, that was a 7% reduction in our overall budget moving into next year, which equates to about $1.139 million. So that is our challenge moving into next year, is to how to absorb 7% of our budget without losing any services.
Yeah, and that's a tough one.
I
don't envy your seats. That's a tough one.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
I do appreciate being able to come and do this audit.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Where you have to head back to?
Lexington,
Thought so.
not too far.
All right, safe travels home. Thank you.
Safe travels.
Okay, moving on. We're going to go into the public comment. Please note, as you address the board, there is a 3-minute time limit. I have a list of names here. I'll call your name, and you can present your information to the board. First up is Laura Boyd.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Laura Boyd, and I have 4 kids I have 2 that have graduated already and 2 graduating in the spring. I'm here to address the issue of our board chair and an incident that occurred on October 17th around 10 p.m. at Dickman's in Fort Wright, where he was found unresponsive and subsequently received doses of Narcan for an apparent overdose. I'm proud to say that we have a very successful drug-free program that's encouraged for students and athletes to be members of, yet we don't hold our our board members to the same standards. We wouldn't tolerate this behavior from a student, from a teacher, from the administration, and our board should be no exception. I recognize that there needs to be proof that this happened by way of medical documentation, but because of HIPAA rules, I obviously cannot obtain that information. However, it seems that the burden of proof lies on our board chair if he wants to remain on the board in any capacity, the chair or otherwise. He should be temporarily removed from the board pending further investigation and compelled to authorize the hospital, the fire department, any other department that was there that evening to release and forward documentation directly to the school for review. If medical documentation shows that in fact there was not an overdose, or that it was an overdose and not a heart attack as he is alleging, then he should be removed from the board immediately. If he refuses to authorize the release of any of those documents, that should also be cause for removal. If he has nothing to hide, this request should not be an issue. If documents prove that these allegations are false, he would be reinstated at that time. As long as Dr. Savignano remains on the board has 0 credibility. There's no way to know that the decisions that he's approving for our students are made of sound mind. Beechwood has always been the school that sets the bar for excellence. It's the school that other schools strive to be. I've always been proud to be a part of the Beechwood family and trust that this will be handled expeditiously and appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is it Corey Yelton?
Since we're switching topics, I do have one thing, Ms. Yelton, before you come up. I just need to make a couple of things clear, and I apologize. I don't mean to jump in front of you, but I know a couple of you that are getting ready to speak are upset about a discipline issue, and in 2023, I completely understand your fears. However, I need to make a couple of things clear. Last Monday morning, the high school administration was made aware of a potential threat on social media. They immediately secured the premise and contacted Fort Mitchell Police. An investigation was conducted and determined there was not a direct threat nor an imminent safety risk. This resulted in no further actions by the police department. In my opinion, communication should have gone out at that time, but we chose not to do so since the police didn't find the post to be a valid threat or anyone being in imminent danger. I was personally notified later in the evening, and requested a statement go out regardless of the fact that there was not charges or an immediate threat. However, once law enforcement didn't bring charges, the matter moved to a school discipline issue. Unlike a bomb or a student bringing a weapon to school, this situation was extremely vague, and regardless, many of the details have been shared since or completely fabricated. At no time were any students in the building in danger, and at no time was the student in question unaccompanied after the admin was aware. Discipline issues cannot be discussed publicly, period. However, social media, this is the one that I really try to get across without being confrontational. However, social media posts in the community have made it more difficult to conduct school discipline. We are absolutely not influenced by social media, but it is problematic to defend our process, our discipline process, when it can easily appear that consequences are tied to social media posts and community demands that aren't even based on all facts. I know some of you say, well, we didn't have all the facts, and I'll respond with, refer to the student discipline issues cannot be discussed publicly. So I cannot even combat those half-truths in writing or on social media if we were to do so. And finally, one other thing that's been shared, just to make sure we're all clear, our board does not manage school discipline. They have no say in school discipline other than to pass the handbook policies. They have no day-to-day interaction with those outcomes. That all falls back to the school admin. With that being said, Ms. Shelton, please move forward.
Hi, my name's Corey Yelton. On Monday, December 4th, around 9:30 p.m., my 9th grade daughter casually mentioned to me, "Oh, a student at Beechwood threatened to shoot up the school tomorrow." She explained how she saw, along with several other girls, a Snapchat story video of a fellow student with 2 guns, one described as a pistol and the other as an AK-47, with his hand in view and the caption reading something along the lines of, "See everyone at school tomorrow." Shockingly, this was not deemed credible enough to warrant a parent communication on Monday. There are consequences of not communicating timely and appropriately to your community. You removed our rights as parents to make an informed decision for our children about coming to school the next day. You removed the rights of the teachers to make the same decision, and you blindsided them by not making them aware of this concern. You removed our ability as parents to have conversations with our concerned children before sending them off to school. You have a lot of power as an institution, but you don't have those rights over our children. I have no idea what your risk tolerance is, and I'm not willing now or ever to blindly turn that over to you. The trust us mentality has failed many families in this country. Even as I was preparing my speech, last week, another school shooting claimed the lives of 3 more people. I believe that brings the count to well over 300 since April of 1999, Columbine. Don't you think those families trusted their schools too? Despite the perception of this community, Beechwood isn't immune to danger. This reality doesn't diminish Beechwood as a great place to send your kids for school. I love this community and all that it represents, but the seemingly constant effort to brush anything shining negative light on the school under the rug must stop. One of the most shocking bits of information that I've uncovered over the course of the last week is that there was no communication to the full Beechwood staff and teachers at the beginning of finding out about this threat. They got the same limited and untimely email we got conveniently after the students had arrived at school. During my communication with Dr. Stacy on Monday night, he assured me that the student would not be on campus on Tuesday and that our SRO, front office staff, and administrators were fully aware. I took that to mean everyone would know and be on the lookout. That was the only reason we let our 3 children come to school that day. When I dropped my 5th grader off that morning, I was dismayed to find that there was no additional police presence at the school, but furious when I later found out that the teachers didn't even know anything about it. How exactly would any teacher standing watch at a door or in the drop-off circle be able to make sure that the student in question didn't walk right into the school if they didn't even know anything was going on? An email should have gone out to them alerting them on Monday of all the details, including the student's name and a picture, so that anyone with authority at the school would be aware of his presence that could be an imminent threat. What if things had turned out differently on Tuesday? Would you all be really comfortable with your decision not to inform the community about this potential threat? Would you be able to look a devastated parent in the eye and tell them that you're sure you did everything possible to protect their child and that you were confident that you didn't need to share the information with them ahead of time? Would you be able to sleep at night knowing that you withheld information because you decided for yourself that you didn't think it was a big enough deal to let everyone know? Again, you don't get to make that decision. If you show me in black and white where there's a governing law that says a school cannot disclose to parent community details of threatening social media posts that could put other students and teachers in harm's way and cannot disclose identifiable information to the school staff, I'll stop advocating for a change here at the district level, and I'll move on to the state and federal level to make my arguments there. But so far in my research of the Department of Education, both federal and state, the FBI and other states and other school districts, I've found that both FERPA and state laws allow for exceptions on disclosing information when there is a substantive threat that could result in bodily harm to others.
Thank you, Tom.
When is this district going to stop prioritizing the privacy of one student or
I think I
teacher?
send you those state and federal laws.
Yeah, but they didn't say anything about that.
Okay, thank you.
Next on the list, Chris Yelton.
Hello, my name is Chris Yelton, and thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time tonight. I'd like to address the threat against the school that was made on social media last Monday as well. I feel the school's communication regarding this threat was extremely inadequate. While I understand that not all information can be released to the public, I feel that our communication strategy is far too guarded and conservative. One might say it was even vague and implied. I talked to several parents from our community that had no idea what that email was about. I'm not advocating for the release of personal information to the public. It is possible to inform the public about the nature of a threat or perceived threat without compromising personal information. Instead, what we got was a vague email 24 hours later that basically said, hey, something happened, but don't worry, it's over. First of all, how can you determine that a threat is no longer a problem in under 24 hours? The immediate threat might be, but every school shooting in the past has shown there is typically a pattern of missed or glossed over signs prior to their heinous acts. What is being done to ensure the continued safety of everyone in the building? And if a kid returns to school, what procedures are in place to continue to protect our children? What I find truly appalling is the lack of communication to teachers and staff. We talked to multiple teachers that had no idea what was going on. This not only shows a lack of concern for teacher safety, but our children as well. This type of communication from a school system does nothing to assure the community and only creates an us versus them mentality, fueling the rumor mill and distrust in the entire system. My best friend is a superintendent in a much larger school system than ours, and he was shocked beyond belief at the way our school system communicates to the community. He said, and I quote, "The decision of a school system on how it communicates is their choice. They get to make that decision. And I'm here to tell you that you made the wrong decision." Another friend of mine is an SRO in another Kentucky school, and he said, "Yeah, that's pretty typical." Well, I'm not looking for typical, and typical is not why I moved to this school district. As a community, we deserve to have our communication policy reviewed, updated, and reported back to us. As a community, we deserve to know what is going on in our schools so that we can make the risk assessment regarding whether our students go to school that day or not. As a community, we want to be able to assure our students that their school is doing everything possible to keep them safe. As a community, we want to be able to partner with our school and not stand here in opposition to them. Thanks for your time.
Next up is Robin, I'm sorry, is it Crouch? I apologize.
speaking today about the December 4th incident in which a student allegedly made a threatening statement involving guns. The school stated via email the following day that the threat was not credible, and although not publicly addressed, I believe the student has been suspended but will be permitted to return or already has returned. I'm asking for transparency about how the situation is being handled going forward so parents are assured of their children's safety. The questions I have are: 1, does this child have a history of behavioral problems within the school? 2, still on 1. This would put him at a higher risk for acting on these alleged threats. 2, is the child being expelled? If he is being expelled, has a plan been put into place to protect our students from harm? Will he be moving to a higher level of care? 3, if he's not being expelled, what safety protocols are in place? For instance, is he being patted down each morning and throughout the day? 4, does the Fort Mitchell Police Department believe it is possible to work with his parents to confirm that he does not have access to weapons now or in the future? 5, have all the teachers been notified of his identity? 6, in response to the situation, is the school updating their policies so an expulsion can happen if this were to occur again in the future? I know this is a challenging situation with many moving pieces. The goal I have in speaking is to ask for more transparency, express my respect for your hard work for the school, and above all, ensure the safety of our kids. Finally, I think the challenge of this situation before us is that when a student makes a threat, we don't know if it's real or credible threat unless something horrible happens. All we have are the warning signs, and it appears we have very clear and escalating signs here. Thank you.
Jennifer Withrow. Jennifer Withrow. Sorry, I didn't see you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dr. Jennifer Withrow. I'm a professor of social work. I've also been a clinical social work in practice. I have the esteemed pleasure of serving on the Elementary SBDM Council, and I appreciate all of the hard work of the faculty and staff that go into serving and protecting our children. But I'm here tonight as a parent representing myself and my family. I have a 4th grader and a 2nd grader at Beechwood. I moved into the district because of the quality of education. But this is the 2nd threat to Beechwood in the 5 years that my children have attended. When my oldest was a kindergartner, she came home and said, "Mom, what happens if a bad guy gets into our school and shoots and kills our teacher when she's trying to protect us?" I have to think about the mental health of our students. I'm not going to elaborate more than what the parents here spoke about tonight, but I want to add to the discussion. As parents, we are fearful to send our children to school, not because of this latest incident, but because of gun violence in the United States. Our kids are traumatized as well and fearful. I work at a college where mass shootings are a potential as well. And I will say the university I work for does a heck of a job of communicating when mass shootings happen. For example, last week when one happened on a university campus, an email came out immediately reminding people of protocols, procedures, and how our university police are keeping our campus safe. Although I know no one can predict these type of events, I want to focus back on the mental health of our children. Because children are still, we know, post-COVID, there are higher incidents of mental health in K through 12 and in college as well. And they're also traumatized and stressed when they know that there have been active threats that have occurred at their school. So I encourage the district to ensure when these things happen that there is curriculum in place to address the mental health of our students as they are processing the trauma of a threat to them in their safe space. I also encourage the district to incorporate a no tolerance policy when it comes to threats against campus, faculty, staff, and students. And as other colleagues or as other parents have said, there are schools that are doing communication very well. And I would encourage the company that Beechwood contracts with to really look into what are ways that communication can be improved in such matters so that we, the parents, the community, students, teachers, and staff feel safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kyle Burns.
I'm going to give up my time. I just wanted to have the option depending on what else was said.
Thank you, Kyle.
All right.
That's the last of it?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much for voicing your concerns this evening. Moving on, we're going into our discussion and action agenda. First topic is the school calendar for 2024-25, which is a first reading.
All right. There's no motion, so
Correct.
I can. So just to go back to what we've done in the past, you see one school calendar at a time. You can either choose to be this only, or you can replicate that over the next 2 years. You don't approve them until that time comes, but you can go ahead and give the initial kind of consent for parents to plan ahead. So I just need to know what you want for next time. This is the recommendation from the calendar committee and Mr. Kaiser. That will be the one that, if you have any questions tonight, you need to let us know, even though you have a representative board member on the committee. If not, you need to let us know, do you want us to bring 2 more? You would not officially vote on them, but that would give some kind of advanced planning if you're so inclined.
I think it's been nice for our parents when we do that. They
Okay.
like
Have the
having-
2-year.
It's very consistent with.
Okay,
Yeah.
so for the second reading, you will see school calendar for 24-25. That will be the one you're officially approving. You will see 2 drafts for 25-26 and 26-27. And they'll be draft, which means that you can always amend moving into the next year, but that's your general projection of the calendars. All right?
Okay. Moving forward, going to the consent agenda. I will take a motion to have the approval to adopt the consent agenda.
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
I'll second.
All right, I need to write that down. All right, consent agenda, some normal things. The use of facilities, we are allowing a couple of different entities. Fusion Football Club is using it, and next month we'll have another request from Dance Studio. Overnight, choir and band, very typical, a pay application for the front construction. And then one item that is not typical is the furniture package for the new building. You are approving in your consent agenda that we move forward with KDA office furniture out of Lexington to outfit all of the new areas. Any specific questions on those?
No.
All right.
Now you do the vote.
Yeah. Ms. Lee?
Yes.
Ms. Strigger?
Yes.
Dr. Chaviano?
Yes.
Ms. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
All right, the ayes have it, 5-0.
Okay, moving on to our information. First up is our superintendent's report.
All right, so I just want to reiterate, number one, it's always great to have a good audit. I mean, I think that is important for you guys as a board. That is one of the 2 main topics that you guys oversee. financial state of the system and the facilities of the system. But we do have, and I'm not going to sugarcoat moving into second semester. We lost $1.139 million out of the increase in assessments. That's 7% of our total operating budget. That is a significant one, especially when you look at when you reduce pay, which we have right at 79% of our overall budget, which is low. For most districts, 79% of our budget goes to pay, fixed costs, utilities, food, water bills. Those fixed costs are always present. And when you add a fixed cost and debt service, you get to about another 15–16%, which leaves us just a small margin for maintenance supplies and some of those aspects. So I mean, we are razor thin moving in to next calendar year. We're probably looking at cuts. I mean, there's no way to make up 7% of your budget without discussing people. On the flip side, we have been advocating in Frankfurt. We'll continue advocating in Frankfurt. One of the things that we are absolutely pushing very hard is a phase-in. So when the writers of the Rose decision in 1989 and 1990, when it was decided on, put that piece of legislation, put that lawsuit together, and it moved into legislation. The writers of the legislation at the time thought anything above a 4% in assessment gains was substantial. And therefore, if you have over a 4% in gains, you get a one-time paycheck back to help offset that cost. At no time did anybody ever see that property values would increase anywhere near 31%. It's unprecedented, and when I say unprecedented, that's the highest property assessment increase in the history of the state of Kentucky since the Rose assessment. Right, so it truly is unprecedented. With that being said, there is a caveat of the legislation that if a major industry pulls out of a said district, that they have a 3-year phase-in. So, for example, when the TVA pulled out of southeastern Kentucky, those communities had a period of time to help phase in that loss of revenue. All right, so what we are lobbying in Frankfurt during this upcoming session is that same type of phase-in be offered to a property assessment loss, all right? Just in the way that it would be if an industry pulled out of our community.
Are we also asking for maybe some type of realignment on C formula too? Because, I mean, that's just a temporary
Right.
fix.
So let me go through the things that we're asking, then I'll address that. So we're asking for a 3-year phase-in that not only would give us the one-time payment, but would allow us to offset the loss over a 3-year period, which would give us the ability to, with our 4%, to make up, some of that difference. The second thing that that is on the table that we will continue to advocate for is there is still some ESSER funds available for construction costs. Whenever you as a board voted to start the new addition and the new building out front and the new renovation out back, that cost was here. Whenever we went to actually make the bids, the cost was here. So that is called a gap funding model. So we are asking the state to move forward with that gap funding to use some of the ESSER dollars that have to be spent to offset those gaps that local districts had to make up. You made it up. We had the bonding capacity to make it up, but it also put us in a position to do a capital campaign for some of the, I call them, for lack of better terms, some of the flashy topics and technology that's in the new facility. If you were to receive the gap funding, then that would offset some of those losses. We've also asked that if we were to receive gap funding, that a portion of it be unrestricted, which means that we wouldn't have to just replace it into bonding capacity. We can move it over to general fund. Again, a short-term fix, but it would starve off the losses to the assessment. All right, now your question.
Wait, before you move on, what's the timeline of when we'll know if we have any, if we get any of those things?
Yeah, so I mean, session goes from January and Sendai to Sendai, which is usually last day of March, first day of April in that time frame. So we won't know until right around spring break whether any of those lobbying efforts are successful. We also want to know, Chrissy, when do we get the callback payment? It's around the same time.
Like February, but you probably won't get it in March.
Yeah. So we should know an estimate of what that, because that's, in statute, that's not guaranteed. That just says if they have the ability. Well, they're sitting on one of the largest budgets, or money in history. I don't see that won't happen, but I just can't tell you exactly what the cost would be. I'm going to guesstimate somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000.
Yeah, that's what I assumed.
What do you, I know we're not gonna know, but how do you feel like it's been going?
I mean, I think, I don't think anybody is not sympathetic to the situation that we're in because it's never happened before, right? Fort Thomas, their property values increased 18, 19% a year, last year, or the year before us, which would be 2 years ago. We were projecting, somewhere in that similar range. Even though we've had more property turnover and the interest rates had gone up. So I was really hoping, maybe 15, but no way that we could have projected 31. So I think everybody's sympathetic. It's whether or not we can come back. There's a lot of people advocating for those funds. Universities are in trouble because their enrollments are down. There's a lot of people with their handout. So, I mean, I won't give you a rate of success. I would say right now it's 50-50.
Is there anything we can do? Are we doing it all?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely lobbying. I mean, Chris McDaniels, our local senator, Kim Banta's our local representative. I think, as we move forward, we'll have a strategy to, even from your all seats, reach out and kind of, again, keep your problem fresh is part of the stress through session as getting, maintaining being at the top of the list on things that are being discussed. Yeah. My whole premise that I've worked on, or one of the several topics. Number one, we've grown. All right, we're one of the few systems in the state of Kentucky that's grown every year in the last 9 years. Every year, even during COVID, we grew. Number two, we have one of the healthiest budgets from a percentage standpoint now in the state of Kentucky. So we've done, and that's through COVID, and we're one of only 4 districts that spent more during COVID than they received because we stayed open and some capacity all the way through. Number three.
But we got one of the second lowest amounts of.
We got the second lowest amount per pupil.
Out of how many districts?
171.
Yeah.
And number three, our successes. I mean, it's not like we've had any problem being successful. Number four, we are projecting a 4 to 7% increase in property values in the interim years. All right, so that means even if you take a 4% increase, theoretically, if those things were to happen, you're still taking a net loss on revenue. All right, so if you take a 7% reduction, this assessment cycle, you go through a net loss in all the interim years, and we were to come back with a similar increase, then we could not maintain.
Shut the doors.
Yeah. So, then you have to beg the question, which is where she's going, is how far do you let SEEK go in 2023, even though we're not against SEEK, we're not against helping districts that, that have declining property value and declining enrollments. We're not against that, but with the rate of increases, the SEEK model of 1990, where nobody thought that property it would be an oddity if it went up over 4% in 4 years. That doesn't equate to 2023.
stop.
When it is just skyrocketing. So I mean, we have been in discussion about SEEK reform. That has been a conversation. President Stivers, I think, said publicly 2 weeks ago that would be on the slate for the 2025 session, but would not be addressed in 2024. So I don't think SEEK in itself is going to be addressed in a budget cycle. I think it'll be addressed in a non-budget cycle year. So I do see that there's a potential in 2025, but not in 2024.
One of the hardest things in the public is saying, yeah, our property went up 31%, and we lost $1.2 million.
Yeah, right, and because
No, that's a.
What doesn't even make any sense.
some
doesn't make
SEEK
sense.
elements don't make sense. There's two things that I think that's problem number one. How could property values go up 31% and we lose money?
Yeah.
Right?
And
the
most
simple,
people don't even realize that.
yeah. And the simple answer to that is as your property goes up as a SEEK loser, right, you send more money to the state and get less back from the state, right? So that's how the loss takes place. Every district in the state of Kentucky sends 30% of their property assessment income to the state. And then every district in the state of Kentucky gets a SEEK payment per child back. And they can range from anywhere from $10,000+ a child all the way down to we're one of the lowest. In this new model, we were one of the bottom 25 anyway, but now we're one of the bottom 10 at $2,600 per child. So that's where the $1.1 million lost. The second thing that the average person has a difficulty understanding, and even myself, there's almost no explaining it. How can you have building money, but you don't have money over here? And that is one of, because in my home, I can afford to remodel my kitchen or I can't afford to remodel my kitchen. It's that simple. But at school, you can have money that's restricted from the state that you can only use in buildings or renovations, but you can't use that money over here in general fund. So those are the two things that the average person can't understand, in my opinion.
Because it's not like, it's not normal.
That's not normal. All right, any other questions? If not, I'm gonna move on to the second thing, which is a construction update. For the first time in the entire project, I was set to say that the back portion of the front building is officially behind. The front portion is in great shape. We're still about 2 months ahead of schedule. But if they don't get that dried in before the first of the year, it will be very difficult. And I would say by January the 15th, if we're not dried in, then it'll be very difficult to meet our timeline of June.
What do they think right now? Do they think they can get it done?
They think they can get it done. They think they can get it done. We had a little bit of a problem just due to the size of the steel in the auditorium. The catwalk in the auditorium, I mean, it just delayed. Number one, we were delayed getting the product, and number two, craning it in. Some of the larger stuff just couldn't happen, while kids were on campus. It's too dangerous. So we're a little behind for the first time, and that is mainly due to the entrance right here by the high school office that's open. That has to be blocked. It has to be doors and windows in because it can't hold heat without that. And if it can't hold heat, we can't move on to the next phase, which is drywall.
And did they get the footers put in like we thought they would already, or no?
Yeah, steps are in. Steps are in. Footer's been dug.
Okay.
But now, just because the footer's been dug, they can't just automatically lay the concrete and start the plumbing. Because they just can't do the concrete because a lot of plumbing and a lot of electric tie in through that area. So if you remember in that courtyard, there were some big, manhole covers, right? All of our main water supply and bringing in, going out, and electricity come in and out of that area and be underground. So they have probably 4 days of work with plumbing and electric before they can move forward with the foundation. When the foundation gets laid, then they probably have about 3 weeks to be able to block. And other than that, we're ready to rock and roll.
So they'll definitely know where all the plumbing is this time?
Yes, because it's new or the main line.
And documented.
And we actually have drawings, unlike before.
Okay.
All right, other than that, everything else is, as I've reported before. I mean, everything's in good shape. A roof will start, cupola will go back on. All that'll happen very quickly after break. It just boils down to whether or not we can get that dried in and get it heated. All right, that's all I have.
Okay, our next section is I will take a motion to have the agenda part of the official board minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Brad, Jeannie.
Oh, you actually taking the notes.
I'm secretary too.
Board secretary.
All right, we're good. Any other board business?
Nope, not on my end.
Do we need to take a vote on it?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Ms. Sleet?
Yes.
Ms. Stricker?
Yes.
Dr. Saviano?
Yes.
Ms. Berger?
Yes.
Mr. Hood?
Yes.
All right, 5-0, yeah, ayes have it.
Wow, look at you, Brad.
All right, now, we can thank you, Brad. That's hilarious. All right. Oh, all right.
Believe it, I'm going to remember that.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
That's what we're all thinking.
Yeah.
Mr. Hood, any other business from you? Ms. Berger?
I don't think so.
Good on my end.
Stricker? No. Sleep? All right. I don't have anything else for public consumption. Basketball's, boys and girls rolling, archery's rolling. What else we got, Mr. Kaiser? Bowling and swim dive. Oh, yeah. Swim dive. We got second place this weekend. All right. That's all I have.
All right, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Amy.
Aye, and aye.
All right. Everybody in favor say aye.
Aye. Yeah.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. 5-0.